Ladies and gentlemen, the Bad Dads Podcast. Welcome to the Bad Dads. I'm Nathaniel.
And I'm Seth.
And this is the podcast where we talk about movies
And TV shows.
and kind of whatever we want. And today we are going to talk about the latest MCU movie made by Marvel, The Eternals. So I guess the latest movie would be No Way Home, but that's a Sony flick. So this is like the real MCU Studios Disney flick. And the reason that I I'm splicing it out, Seth, is because I think you can tell this is a Disney film and not a Sony film. and there are lots of reasons.
Wait, are you saying that a Sony film was better than a Disney film for the first time in a little while?
Yes. Although, to be fair, I think Sony definitely has a leg up just when they start with a very known quantity in Spider-Man, much beloved. And Disney is scraping the bottom of the barrel, bringing us these 10 misfits and trying to fill a 2.5 hour movie, trying to tell their
To be
story.
fair, Disney has done it before. Guardians of the Galaxy was a fantastic, ripping, snorting good time.
Yep. Also, a bunch of misfits scraping the bottom of the barrel.
That no one knew about.
Yep.
Kind of obsolete characters in the comic book world.
That's
and it was a great film, and I feel like that's kind of where they had to go to bring the Eternals together, right?
Yep. And we have it now.
And do we enjoy it?
Yeah, so
Yeah.
we'll do spoiler free, and then we're going to launch into a lengthy spoiler discussion. But I just want to say how excited I am to talk about this movie because there's so many things I want to unpack in this movie. So
Yeah.
it may take a little bit, but I guarantee you, it's every second's going to be worth it. As we dive into the movie, the characters, and the themes that I think are kind of buried deep in here.
Yeah,
and we kind of
yeah.
discuss what makes this a really unique MCU film.
Yes. Buckle your seatbelt. Here we go.
Okay, so Seth, how long did it take you to watch this movie? So when you started it to when you finished it, how many viewings?
Two viewings across two days.
Right.
Might have been 3 days. I don't remember, and I do not care. What about you, Nathaniel?
So I probably watched it over the span of a week 3 times. The movie's like 2.5 hours long.
It's
And
so long.
It is really long, and it can be tough to get through at times. I don't think there's any denying that. And would you put this in like one of the top half of the MCU movies or the bottom half of the MCU movies?
Bottom quarter by a long shot.
Yeah, and right. So this movie has got a lot of critical disdain. Like this is the lowest critically. Well, I guess
Really?
So this is definitely below 50% on Rotten Tomatoes from the critics. And a lot of people saying that this is not not Marvel's finest work. But is it the worst work? Because you got people who are saying that this is by far not the worst movie. It's just the worst, lowest movie in hindsight. So how would you say that?
Look, so when they made Thor: The Dark World, and that was a pretty bad film, which I think might be the worst film that the MCU has made. I don't know
It's bad. It's really bad.
It's pretty bad, right? Thor has redemption because he's a character. They came back and made Ragnarok, and he's a good character again, right?
The one thing I will say in Thor's defense, Thor 2, is that was a very troubled production.
Sure.
And it went through, I think Patty Jenkins was initially going to direct the movie, but then she kind of fell out as the script kind of got out of control. And then they were trying to pull something together at the 11th hour. They pulled in a director. Right, so they probably didn't have a very developed script, a very developed vision. In fact, I know that movie had 5 screenwriters, 5 screenwriting credits.
Wow.
So they could have even more writers than that working on it. So we're talking about just a mess of a movie.
Yeah.
I don't know that this movie had quite the same development issues that Thor 2. So I'm not saying that redeems Thor 2. Thor 2 is awful, but
Right, but there is redemption to Thor because Thor 1 was good, Thor 3 was good, and Thor in every other movie he's appeared in has been pretty good.
Yeah.
And so the Eternals, I feel so bad for it because if this is the future of the MCU, it's off to a rough start, and I don't know if I want to go watch another Eternals movie, you know?
Right, absolutely.
And I don't know if I care if I see any of them in any spin-offs or any cameos. I don't care any. So I think it's a really tough start for this new cast of characters who I don't know. Perhaps you know, Nathaniel. Are they supposed to be the next generation of superseding Captain America and Iron Man? And
I know, so I don't think so. But I think we're going to see these characters in different movies.
Okay,
but I don't know that we're ever going to see another
kind
Eternals
of
movie.
Split up.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That
I
makes
don't think we're
sense.
ever going to see another Eternals movie, just based on how poorly this movie was received. Which is kind of like Marvel's first bomb, really, when you think about it. In terms of there's no one's like saying, "Oh, I can't wait for this next movie," and
Right.
yeah, I've got to say, if Eternals 2 came out, my enthusiasm level would probably be even less than when I first saw the trailer for this movie.
Yeah. Right. So, what do you think happened, Nathaniel?
You know what? I got a couple of theories about what happened, and we'll get into it because
Spoiler free. What happened?
Spoiler free is they definitely pulled a director who they should not have done. They should not have used Chloe Zhao's.
I did some research on her, and she won some Academy Awards, right? For Nomadland or something.
Yeah.
Which kind of seemed like an interesting film to jump from that into an MCU film. Very different styles, it seemed like.
Right.
I hadn't seen Nomadland, but I read a synopsis, and it didn't seem like a happy-go-lucky comic book film.
And this movie isn't either. So like sometimes
Right.
they've grabbed directors who haven't really directed too many big stuff, but they've adapted to the Marvel vision, right? The Marvel setting and everything. And this director, not so much. This movie is pretty grim. It's not funny at all. Like definitely the most unfunny MCU movie across the board. So I think there's something to that where it did not translate to an MCU style film.
Yeah, I think that's been part of the appeal of Marvel films for a lot of people is that it's something that everyone can watch because of the humor.
Yeah.
That just has been consistent across all Marvel films. Like, at least it's funny. I don't like comic book characters, but at least it's funny. So I'll go watch it with my significant other, family, friends, whatever. And so, yeah, that takes a big hit to a film if it lacks that, where audiences grab onto the humor. So, yeah, I'm with you there.
I think another issue is a lot of these characters are dry as toast. They're not very memorable. And the reason that I know these characters is because I think oftentimes they represent something that the culture or Disney is trying to push on its audiences, and it's ridiculous. So we'll get into that more. But
for sure.
A lot of these characters, aside from what they represent, they're pretty bland, I think.
I don't know. Yeah, I think we'll have to get into it. I think that there were some good places where it was going, where the development, it got good in the second half of the film with some of the situations we will expound on. Yeah. But I think you're right. As far as the characters themselves go, not super compelling. And I felt like they kind of had a Superman issue where these Eternals are supposed to be godlike figures.
Yeah.
And so you kind of get the Superman issue where it's like, well, they're kind of immortal. And it kind of seemed like that at the beginning of the film. We don't find out until halfway through the film that they're very mortal. They can die,
Yeah, which is really, it was very strange. And this is an issue that I have with comic book movies, especially because I think they're the most egregious violators of this rule. But what's really helpful is to know kind of like the power level of people. Like, I don't know if these debates, I don't remember if they're still going on, but they used to go on, especially in the late 90s, early 2000s, mid 2000s stuff.
Right.
Oh, who would win? Batman or Captain America?
Sure.
Wolverine or Wonder Woman, right? And people would try to like accurately kind of put their how tough they were, how strong they were, how smart they were, and try to quantify those factors. And so you could envision this person fighting this person and who would win, and then you would change the variables of, okay, well, what if Wonder Woman has a broken leg and she's versus somebody, or what if Hulk isn't just a raging monster, but what if he's like smart Hulk versus Superman? And so what if Batman had time to prepare for fighting Captain America? Would he make the right gadget to defeat him? And so so you build in these variables with Eternals, and I think I noticed it mostly in Thor Ragnarok, where they completely said there's like no power levels bar at all, or like meters at all. It's whatever we say it is for whatever situation.
Right.
And so with Eternals, it's like, well, maybe they're really tough. Maybe they can take a punch to the head or like heat vision to the chest.
Yeah.
Or maybe they can't and they can die by just a gunshot. And so it was very strange to try to figure out what these characters could and couldn't do, physically.
Right, yeah. So we see them getting stabbed, but they're also fighting very sharp monsters, and it doesn't seem like they ever have a scratch on them.
Right.
Stuff like that, I think, is something where I completely agree with you. It didn't... And their powers themselves just seemed like they were really scraping the bottom of the barrel. Well, we have... I actually have a picture of them all up here. So I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So there's 8 different people. They all need different powers, but they all have to be unique. So the main character, whatever she touches, she can turn into different materials.
Right.
That's a really obscure power, and if I were Celestial, I don't know if I'd care to use an Eternal that had that power.
Right. And just because we're in spoiler free, right? The idea of the movie is the Celestials are this
sorry.
sort of like this godlike figure.
I spoiled it.
No, it's not a spoiler. but right, they in the very first scene, right, they send out the Eternals, these superpowered people, to save planets from these deviant monsters who are terrorizing the world's population.
Deviants, yeah.
And so this happens.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, I would say the other issue that this film kind of seemed to struggle with was the runtime. It just drags on and on and on, and it doesn't seem like it's ever getting anywhere. So,
well, it's almost they structured the movie in such a way that it was like, okay, we have this very specific problem, so we need to find this person of the Eternals. It's not like, hey, let's bring everybody together at one time. It's sort of like, let's find this person. Okay, now we need to find someone else. We're going to go get this person. Okay, now we need to go get someone else. And so that works as a storytelling perspective where you can meet one person along the way and get to know them before you get to know them. Instead of everyone coming together at one time, then you really, characters don't even get their character moments. But the problem is it gets really drawn out, like you said, and it doesn't actually make any sense the way they have it structured.
Yeah. Not just meeting the characters when they were coming back together, but also as different situations came up, they would say, oh, this harkens back to a certain time back in history when the Eternals were met with this or that situation. And it was like, so the story isn't chronological. It starts off in 5000 BC, and then it bounces forward to the future, and then it bounces back into the past, and then back into the future, and then back into the past, and then back into the future, then back into the past. And it's like, why don't you just get the beginning stuff over, and we'll know, and you can go forward? Like, it doesn't make any sense. I guess if you put it on paper, maybe it would make sense. Like, we need to reveal bits of information about why different things happen to the Eternals, and, in the story of their team. But it just,
Well, most of the flashbacks, they're not even spoilers. And that's the weird thing, right?
It was just kind of building on their character when it was like, you should have built on their character a long time ago.
Right. When the Eternals go see Phastos, the guy who can make any machine that he wants to, it's basically, okay, now we're going to put in the flashback where he leaves the team. And it's like, okay, oh, I see. So we have a little bit of backstory. and it's like the lamest thing. It's basically, let's pause the movie.
Yeah.
And the narrator comes on and says, the reason he's not part of the group until now is because of this. And it's like, come on. So I'm with you there.
Yeah. So story completely drawn out. I think that's the major killer, the killing blow to this film. Just the long drawn out, unwatchable.
But I think that's part of that is because of how many characters they have to bring in. And so if they would have reduced the number of characters, we would be able to save some of this time.
I mean, the Avengers did it, and I'll be honest. So I watched the Avengers before I saw any of the lead-in films.
Right.
They did it just fine.
So you saw the Avengers before you saw Iron Man,
Thor, Captain. Yeah.
All right. Okay.
And it was completely fine for me. It was like, so how did it start? It started with Nick Fury and the Tesseract, and it also threw in Hawkeye there, right?
Yeah, right.
And then we were introduced to Loki, the villain, right away. Yep. And then we meet Black Widow, and then Captain America, and then, Iron Man. They're all just kind of introduced naturally into the story as the story naturally grows. I never had an issue with that. I think the Avengers did it fine. Eternals not so much.
Yeah, there's definitely an issue where, like the Avengers, as an example, it seemed like they're all integral to the plot, and they all came to the plot when they were needed. Well, you kind of, but following their own character arcs. This movie is, hey, let's just pick up characters when the script conveniently needs them.
Yeah, and there were characters that didn't need to be in the film either. I think Fastos doesn't even do much.
No,
he's kind of part of the technicality how they had to win at the end.
Although they don't even use his strategy to win. If you think about
that's right. That's right. That was a whole. Nathaniel, should we stop here and go straight to spoilers?
yeah. One more thought about the pacing of the movie is that there's this opening crawl where there's like 3 paragraphs of text.
Oh, I didn't read it.
Well, you don't even have to read it because everything is explained in the first 5 minutes. By the time Jon Snow gets explained what an Eternal is, we've learned everything.
Yeah,
we learned everything that we need to. That was in the crawl. It's like, throw out the crawl. We don't need it anyway.
What is it? Right. Star Wars.
All right. Well, folks, I'll put some sort of question in there for the Spotify users, and if you will interact with that and let us know something, we'll come up with some sort of question, and that would be great.
Did you enjoy Eternal? Oh! I know. We'll put 3 little buckets up. And the buckets will be, was it a bone dry burger? Was it baby back ribs? Or perhaps it was a little, or do you think it was the perfect ribeye? Nathaniel, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm going to throw that into the bucket of bone dry burger.
I'm with you there. All right.
All right, folks, thanks for listening with us and sticking through this conversation. I'm Nathaniel.
And I'm Seth.
And this has been
Bad Dads.